In this lesson, we're going to look at how to calculate something called compound interest. Now, this is found in most past papers. They quite often start paper 2 with this kind of question, so it's really important to be able to do it. It doesn't always involve money and can sometimes involve chemistry or other examples, but it's essentially the same way to work it out each time. But we're going to focus on the compound interest type questions with money. Now, the first question is, what is compound interest? Well, this is the way the banks work. You basically get interest on top of other interest, and I'll try and explain that in the diagram below. If you leave money in the bank for several years, what happens is the interest is found for year 1. So at the end of the year, they'll find interest for that year. And then what they'll do is they'll add this to your previous balance. So say, for example, you had a couple £100 in the bank, and at the end of year 1 they gave you some interest. Say, for example, just talking sake, it's £11. At the start of year 2 you'd have £211. They then have to work out the interest on this new figure for year 2. That would then be added on to the previous balance again, and then they would calculate the interest on this new figure. And this goes round and round and round, this process of adding on each time and then calculating the new interest. So let's look at that in an example. So if Andy invests £600 in Halifax or Lloyds TSB for 4 years, calculate the compound interest that builds up on the account. This PA means per annum, so he gets 3% every year. So the first thing to do is to try and work out that as a decimal. You could work out 3% yourself and then add it on, but the best thing to do, I would say, is work out 3% as a decimal, and not only as a decimal but added on to your original 100%. So for talking about this situation here, that would be 103% you're working out. Now, to work out 103%, you have to multiply by 1.03. So 103% divided by 100 equals 1.03. So at the end of year 1, if we multiply 600 by 1.03, we're going to get our new figure of £618. If you want to calculate 3% of 600 and add it on, you would still get £618. This is just a wee bit of a faster method. We explained that in the last lesson. So at the start of year 2, you've got £618. If you multiply that again by 1.03, you'll get your figure at the end of year 2, which is £636.54. And this carries on, and now you've now got £636.54, and you multiply it by 1.03 again, you now get 655.63. Don't round this answer. I think this goes on a wee bit more in your calculator. Just leave it in your calculator and multiply it by 1.03 again, and finally you end up with £665.31. So the question was, calculate how much interest basically that you earned. Now you started off with £600 and you finished off with £675.31. So if we do a takeaway sum here, we can work out how much the bank gave us. So £675.31, take away 600, and that's your answer, £75.31. Again, looking at another example, we've got 3.4% per annum for 4 years again. So change it into a decimal, but one where you're adding it on to 100%. So we've really got 103.4% at the end of year 1, which is 1.034. So year 1, if we want to calculate that, you use 600 times 1.034 and it comes out as £620.40. Again, if you worked out 3.4% and did an add sum, this would be the same value you come out at. We start with that new value in year 2 times by 1.034 and so on. You keep multiplying. And at the end of year 4 you get £685.86. Again, to work out the compound interest, do a takeaway, and the bank gave you £85.86 over the 4 years.